He walks into trouble the way most people walk into a grocery store, calm, steady, and ready for anything. And in Season 4, every step Jack Reacher takes leaves a trail of broken bones, shattered egos, and enemies who wish they'd never crossed him. This season doesn't just raise the stakes. It snaps them clean in half. Reacher Season 4 opens with a heavy, dangerous energy that you can feel from the very first frame. There's no slow build-up, no gentle warm-up. It throws you right into the storm, reminding you exactly who Jack Reacher is: a man who doesn't chase trouble, but also doesn't move aside when trouble chooses him. The visuals we get in the early moments of the season show a world that's darker, colder, and far more hostile than before. Every shadow seems to hide a threat, and every quiet moment feels like the deep breath before a violent explosion. The show makes it clear that Reacher's journey this time around is not just another wandering stop on his endless road. This season feels like a battlefield built just for him, full of enemies who fight harder, think smarter, and shoot faster. But they still don't stand a chance. The atmosphere is tense, gritty, and loaded with danger in every direction. And that tension builds beautifully as the scenes shift from quiet streets to abandoned buildings, from lonely parking lots to messy crime scenes that tell stories even before Reacher starts talking. What makes this setup so gripping is how the camera follows Reacher like a silent witness to his methods. You see the way he watches people, the way he studies rooms, the way he picks up small details that most people overlook. He's not just strong, he's sharp, and this season wants you to understand that the real danger isn't his fists. It's how fast his mind works when violence is coming. The shots linger on his eyes, his steps, the slow flex of his hands right before everything explodes into chaos. It's like watching a lion preparing to strike. Calm but deadly, the first scenes tease several of the brutal moments that fans will be talking about all year. Quick flashes of punches that land like sledgehammers. Bodies hitting the floor before the attackers even realize they've lost the fight. A few shots of gunfire lighting up dark hallways. You can feel the pain without even seeing all the details, and that's exactly what makes the setup so powerful. It builds a sense of danger without giving everything away. You know what's coming, but you don't know when it will hit. The narration for this opening section needs to match the intensity of the visuals. Calm, controlled, but filled with tension. The goal is to pull the viewer into Reacher's world instantly. No introductions, no small talk. Just danger, violence, and the promise of even more brutal showdowns ahead. This is the Reacher universe at its most raw, simple rules, fast decisions, and consequences delivered with force. As the intro section closes, one thing becomes clear. Season 4 isn't here to repeat the past. It's here to escalate everything. Bigger threats, harder fights, sharper shootouts. Reacher has always been a storm, but this season, he's a full-scale hurricane. And every enemy in his path is about to learn why Jack Reacher is the last man you ever want to stand against. Season 4 wastes no time proving that Reacher's fists are still the most dangerous weapons in the room. The first major hand-to-hand fight hits like a shockwave, dropping you straight into a dim warehouse where the air is thick with tension. The scene begins quietly, just Reacher standing still, listening. It's the kind of silence that feels too heavy, like the building itself knows something violent is about to happen. Then the attackers step out from behind crates and shadows, thinking they've cornered him. They don't realize the truth. Reacher isn't cornered. They are. What makes this fight stand out isn't just the brutality, but the precision. Reacher doesn't waste a single move. His punches aren't flashy or dramatic, they're simple, direct, and devastating. The first guy rushes in fast, and Reacher ends it even faster with a short, bone-cracking strike to the jaw. The second man tries to come at him from the side, but Reacher grabs him by the shirt, slams him against a steel table, and drops him before he can blink. The hits land so hard you can almost feel them, even through the screen. It's clean, tactical violence, the kind only Reacher can deliver. From here, the season pushes the brutality even further. The next major fight takes place in a crowded bar filled with loud music and bad intentions. Reacher is sitting quietly, minding his own business until a group of men decide to test him. Bad choice. The moment the first punch is thrown, the whole room becomes a battlefield. Reacher uses everything around him as a weapon: chairs, broken bottles, even the edge of the bar counter. He doesn't just fight in the environment, he fights with it. One man gets slammed headfirst into a tabletop, another gets tossed into a wooden pillar so hard it cracks, and someone else takes a bottle to the forearm before Reacher sends him flying. The scene is wild, chaotic, and incredibly satisfying. What makes these fights unique is the way the show highlights Reacher's calmness. While everyone else panics, he moves like he's solving a math problem. Every strike is calculated. Every step is intentional. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't hesitate. He simply acts. That cold focus is what makes the fights feel so heavy. You're not just watching Reacher when you're watching him take apart entire groups of trained men like puzzles. Then comes the alley ambush, one of the most intense scenes of the season. It starts with Reacher walking alone through a narrow, shadowy back street. The quiet is broken by the sound of footsteps behind him, fast, aggressive. Suddenly, 3 attackers rush him from both ends of the alley. Most people would panic, but Reacher doesn't flinch. He shifts his weight, lowers his shoulders, and the fight begins. He sends the first guy into a brick wall with a punch that would drop a bull. The second comes at him with a knife, but Reacher twists his wrist, disarms him, and flips him onto the pavement. The last attacker tries to run when he realizes what he's up against, but Reacher catches him before he gets far. One hit, lights out. What ties all these scenes together is the way Season 4 shows Reacher's evolution. He's stronger, faster, and even more aware of his surroundings. His fighting style feels sharper than before, as if every battle he survived has made him even more dangerous. And the violence isn't there just for shock value, it tells a story. A story of a man who has learned to control chaos, who turns disadvantage into opportunity, and who never, ever loses a fight he chooses to stand in. Season 4 doesn't just show Reacher fighting. It shows Reacher dominating, overpowering, breaking through every threat with a brutal efficiency that feels almost unreal. And the best part? The fights keep getting harder. And so does he. If the hand-to-hand fights in Season 4 show Reacher's raw power, the shootouts reveal something even more dangerous: his mind. When guns enter the scene, Reacher becomes a different kind of beast. Not loud, not reckless, but cold, strategic, and terrifyingly precise. The first major shootout hits you with that quiet intensity the moment it begins. A rural field at dawn, long shadows stretching across empty land. The kind of place where sound travels but backup doesn't. Reacher crouches low behind an old truck, scanning the horizon as a group of armed men spread out, thinking they have him boxed in. They don't know he's already analyzed every angle, every piece of cover, every escape line. When he strikes, it's not random gunfire, it's planned destruction. The first shot comes from Reacher, clean and controlled. He doesn't fire twice unless he needs to. One bullet drops the leading gunman, sending the others into chaos. They shoot wildly, but Reacher uses the terrain like an ally. He shifts positions fast, staying low, using dips in the dirt, fallen logs, and small rises in the ground to vanish between shots. Each time he reappears, another enemy falls. It's not a Hollywood-style firefight, it's tactical chess. And Reacher is always 3 moves ahead. Then the season shifts tone with the night raid shootout, easily one of the most intense scenes the show has ever done. Everything is lit by the cold blue glow of moonlight and the sharp burst of muzzle flashes. Reacher moves through a warehouse complex like a ghost, silent, invisible, but deadly. He uses a suppressed weapon, taking clean shots from the shadows. One by one, armed guards collapse before they even know where the threat is coming from. The echo of suppressed gunfire is soft, but the impact is heavy. Reacher doesn't rush. He clears rooms slowly, deliberately checking corners, watching reflections in broken glass, studying enemy patterns before striking. The tension rises when an alarm gets triggered. Suddenly, every door bursts open, floodlights snap on, and the quiet operation becomes a full, explosive gunfight. Reacher doesn't panic, he adapts instantly. He switches to a heavier weapon taken from a fallen guard, positions himself behind steel beams, and uses the cluttered environment as a maze to trap his attackers. They try to push forward with numbers, but Reacher fights like a man who's been in a dozen real battlefields. Short bursts. Controlled breathing. Perfect timing. He doesn't waste bullets. He doesn't lose ground. He turns the enemy's panic into his advantage and takes the entire building back one shot at a time. But the most brutal shootout comes later, the final confrontation, an all-out war zone. It begins inside a half-finished construction site, metal beams exposed, concrete floors dusty and raw. Reacher is outnumbered, surrounded by men with automatic weapons. But he doesn't run. He studies their formation, spots their weakest link, and hits it with ruthless efficiency. His movements shift constantly between cover and attack. One moment he's firing from behind a stack of concrete slabs, the next he's advancing with explosive aggression, turning a fallen enemy's rifle into an extension of his own arm. The shootout grows more chaotic as explosions shake the site, sending debris into the air and forcing close-quarters combat. Reacher switches seamlessly between guns and hand-to-hand violence. When an enemy charges in too close, Reacher disarms him, throws him over a railing, and picks up his dropped weapon in the same motion. Every second feels like life or death, but Reacher never breaks. He fights with the calm of a soldier who knows panic is what gets you killed. By the end of this massive scene, the ground is littered with broken concrete, bullet casings, and enemies who learn too late who they were dealing with. Reacher stands alone, breathing steady, ready for whoever thinks they can survive the next round. The message is clear. Season 4 isn't just about fists, it's about firepower, and how Reacher turns any battlefield into his territory. By the time Season 4 reaches its final stretch, one thing becomes unmistakably clear: this is the most intense, most violent, and most focused chapter of Reacher's story so far. Everything we've seen, every punch, every takedown, every gunfight builds toward a single powerful message. Jack Reacher isn't just a fighter, he's a force of nature. And when he decides to stay, when he decides to stand his ground, the world around him changes. It becomes smaller, quieter, terrified. The closing energy of the season wraps around you like a tightening fist. The world Reacher walks through is darker than before, filled with enemies who are smarter and more organized. But even with the odds stacked high, Reacher stands unshaken. What makes this final section so gripping is the way the show lets you breathe for just a moment, only to remind you that peace in Reacher's world never lasts long. There's always a hidden danger waiting, always another man with a weapon, and an ego, always one more threat that thinks it's bigger than him. They're always wrong. Season 4 doubles down on Reacher's core traits: his logic, his discipline, his brutal honesty, and his impossible strength. The closing scenes highlight not just the violence, but the meaning behind it. Reacher isn't a hero chasing glory. He's a protector chasing justice. When someone innocent gets hurt, Reacher steps in not because he wants to, but because something inside him refuses to let evil pass by. That's what makes the final moments hit so hard. You feel the weight of every decision, every fight, every enemy who thought they were untouchable until they met the wrong man on the wrong day. The show closes with a shot of Reacher walking away from the battlefield, dust settling around him, the echo of gunfire fading into silence. He doesn't look back. He never does. There's no celebration, no cheering crowd, no farewell speech. Just Reacher, moving forward, ready for the next fight he didn't ask for but will face anyway. It's the kind of ending that leaves you staring at the screen, wanting more, waiting for the next explosion of violence he's destined to step into. For a faceless video, this final section needs to feel like a slow burn of tension mixed with admiration. The narration should sound steady and confident, capturing the idea that Reacher isn't just a character, he's a symbol of unstoppable justice wrapped in muscle and calm judgment. The visuals would show silhouettes, slow-motion debris falling, empty streets, flickering lights, and Reacher's massive shadow moving across the frame, no face needed. The legend speaks through the violence. As the video moves into its final moments, you want to leave viewers with hype that sticks. Remind them why Season 4 stands above the rest. The fights are harder, the shootouts are sharper, the enemies are crueler. And Reacher? He's the strongest he's ever been. This season doesn't just raise the bar, it crushes it under his boot. Fans who love the show for its bone-breaking realism and tactical brutality are going to talk about this season long after the credits roll. Now the final push, the call to action. Keep it smooth, powerful, and in the same tone as the story. Something that doesn't break immersion but fuels it. Encourage the viewer to stay connected, to keep watching, to come back for more breakdowns, predictions, and deep dives into the most brutal scenes. The CTA should flow like a continuation of Reacher's energy, not begging, not flashy, just firm and confident. Closed with a slow, rising sound cue, a heavy thud, a whoosh of wind. A slow-motion shot of a fist tightening or a gun being holstered. Something that tells the audience, this isn't the end. It's only the calm before the next storm. Because if Season 4 has taught us anything, it's this: whenever trouble rises, Reacher rises higher. And every enemy who crosses his path learns the same painful lesson. Justice hits harder when Jack Reacher delivers it.